Subscribe for more untold tales. In the shadow of war lie forgotten stories. Share your thoughts below. Your ears have probably never heard of Forward Operating Base Echo. You won't find it on any government-issued maps. All documentation of what happened there in 2019 was destroyed by the military. But I witnessed the entire incident. I saw successful soldiers being silenced one by one, as if they were being made to disappear. And I know the truth about the spy among us for 7 days, before realizing we were living in the same environment as something supernatural. FOB Echo was located in a valley between two ridges in eastern Afghanistan. It was beyond remote. The nearest coalition base was a 3-hour helicopter ride away, weather permitting. Most days the weather didn't permit it. We were guarding a single mountain pass checkpoint with 47 soldiers. This route was used by the Taliban for ammunition shipments. Local smugglers used it to transport opium. We were working to uncover reasons that would justify our presence among people who wanted to kill us. I was a staff sergeant then, running a squad in 2nd Platoon. My boys were solid. Martinez could spot movement on a mountainside from 2 clicks out. Thompson kept our comms running with duct tape and prayers. Young Private Jackson, fresh from Fort Benning, still believed we were making a difference. We all protected that innocence in him. It was the only pure thing left on that mountain. The problem started when Corporal Davies' patrol went missing. 4-man team, routine sweep of the northern approach. They checked in at 0800, reported light snow beginning to fall. By 9 a.m., they'd gone silent. Not unusual in those mountains, radio shadows everywhere. But by noon, with no word and weather deteriorating, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison sent my squad to find them. You need to understand something about those mountains in winter. The cold isn't just uncomfortable, it's predatory. It finds every gap in your gear, every weakness in your resolve. 20 minutes without proper protection, and you're looking at frostbite. An hour and you're dying. We geared up like we were heading into combat, because in a way, we were. The mountain was the enemy. We found their Humvee 2 kilometers north of the base, engine still running, doors open, weapons inside. No blood, no brass casings, no signs of contact. Their footprints led away from the vehicle in perfect formation like they'd simply decided to walk into the storm. I stood there, snow cutting into my face, staring at those tracks. 4 soldiers don't just abandon their vehicle and walk into a blizzard. Not without a reason. Martinez picked up their trail. The tracks stayed in formation for about 200 meters, then scattered. 1 set veered east, another west. 2 continued north. It made no tactical sense. You don't split up in a whiteout. You stay together, or you die. Sarge, this is wrong, Thompson said, checking his tablet. Their GPS beacons show them still at the vehicle. I looked back at the empty Humvee. The transponders were there all right. Cut out of their vests and left on the seats. Deliberately, carefully. Like someone wanted us to find them. We followed the northern tracks. Jackson stayed with the vehicle, monitoring comms. Smart kid, but I could see fear creeping into his eyes. He felt it too. Something was off about this whole situation. The tracks led us up a narrow ravine. Wind howled between the rocks, creating sounds that almost seemed like voices, words you couldn't quite make out. Martinez stopped suddenly, rifle up. I moved beside him and saw what had frozen him in place. Davies sat against a boulder, head tilted back, covered in a thin layer of snow, dead. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. His eyes were gone, not torn out, not damaged, surgically removed. The sockets were clean, almost polished. His expression was peaceful, like he'd sat down for a rest and simply never got up. Thompson found Specialist Kim 20 meters away. Same condition, sitting peacefully, eyes removed with surgical precision, no defensive wounds, no signs of struggle. Their weapons were laid carefully beside them, magazines full, safeties on. Where are the other 2? Martinez whispered. As if in answer, we heard singing. Soft, almost cheerful, coming from further up the ravine. A children's song, something about roses and pockets full of posies. Private First Class Reeves' voice, clear as day. We moved toward the sound, weapons ready. The song continued, never wavering, never stopping for breath. Just continuous, impossible singing in Reeves' exact voice. We rounded a massive boulder and found him. Reeves stood facing the rock wall, forehead pressed against the stone, arms at his sides. Singing. The same verse over and over. His eyes were closed, and when Martinez reached out to touch his shoulder, we realized why we couldn't see his breath in the cold air. He was frozen solid. Had been for hours. But the singing continued. It came from above us. We looked up to see the fourth soldier, Private Chen, perched on a ledge 15 feet up. His mouth moved in perfect synchronization with Reeves' voice, but no sound came from his lips. His eyes were gone too, those clean, empty sockets staring down at us. He smiled and waved, a casual gesture, like greeting friends at a barbecue. Then he jumped, not fell, jumped, pushed off with purpose, and landed in a crouch that should have shattered both legs. He stood slowly, still smiling, still mouthing the words to that children's song. Martinez had his rifle on him, but I grabbed the barrel, pushed it down. Something in Chen's posture, the way he tilted his head, told me bullets wouldn't matter. Chen walked past us like we weren't there, headed straight down the ravine toward the base, still mouthing that song. We followed, weapons drawn but useless. He walked through the snow like it was a summer day, no jacket, no gear, just his ACUS and that horrible empty smile. At the vehicle, Jackson nearly shot him. The kid's training kicked in and he challenged Chen properly. Chen stopped, turned to face Jackson and spoke, not in his own voice, but in mine. Stand down, Private. We're coming in, it was perfect. Every inflection, every tone. If you'd had your eyes closed, you would have sworn it was me speaking. Jackson lowered his weapon, confused. Chen smiled wider and continued walking toward the base. I grabbed the radio. Echo base, this is Viper 3. Do not, repeat, do not allow Private Chen into the compound. Detain on sight. Morrison's voice crackled back. Say again, Viper 3. Chen's patrol has been missing for 6 hours. Sir, Chen is approaching the south gate now. Something's wrong with him. He's compromised. There was a pause. Then alarms started wailing at the base. We could hear them, even from 2 kilometers away. We loaded into the Humvee and raced back, but I already knew we were too late. Chen had walked through the snow faster than any human should have been able to move. By the time we reached the gate, Chen was gone. The sentries said he'd never appeared. But the cameras showed something different. They showed Chen walking straight through the closed gate, passing through the metal like it was mist. Then the footage corrupted, turned to static, and when it cleared, there was no sign of him. Morrison ordered a full lockdown. Every inch of the base searched. Every soldier accounted for. We found nothing. Chen had vanished. But that night, things got worse. That night, we realized Chen hadn't disappeared. He'd simply stopped looking like Chen. That first night after the patrol disappeared, nobody slept. Morrison had us on full alert, 2-man teams on every corner, thermal scopes sweeping the perimeter. The base felt smaller, like the mountains were pressing in. You could feel it in the air, that weight of something waiting. At 0200, Specialist Williams reported in from Tower 3. Movement in Sector 7. Looks like, sir, it looks like Davies. Davies, who we'd left frozen in that ravine with empty eye sockets. I ran to the command post where Morrison was watching the feeds. There on the thermal camera was a human-shaped heat signature, standing perfectly still about 100 meters from the wire. The night vision showed a figure in ACUS, head tilted at an unnatural angle. That's impossible, Morrison muttered. You confirmed Davies was KIA. Sir, he had no eyes. He was frozen solid. The figure on the screen raised one arm and waved. Slow, deliberate, like it knew we were watching. Then it spoke, and its voice carried impossibly far, crystal clear through the wind and distance. "Let me in, boys. It's cold out here." Davies' voice, but underneath it, like an echo, we could hear Chen. And beneath that, Reeves and Kim. 4 voices from one throat. Morrison grabbed the radio. "All stations, weapons hold. Do not engage." The figure started walking toward the gate. Not rushing, just a casual stroll through the minefield we'd laid beyond the wire. Mines that should have triggered with anything over 40 pounds. It walked right over them. "Sir," Thompson called from his station, "I'm getting weird readings." Electromagnetic spikes all over the base. The lights flickered. Our equipment, hardened against EMP attacks, started glitching. Radio static rose and fell in patterns that almost sounded like breathing. Then every screen in the command post showed the same thing. Chen's face. Those empty sockets staring at us. "You let me in already." Chen's voice came from every speaker simultaneously. "I'm walking among you, wearing a familiar face. You've talked to me, shared coffee with me. I know all your names now." The screens went dark. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Morrison turned to me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. Head count, now. Every single person on this base verified by someone who's known them more than a year. We tried. God help us, we tried. But you know how it is on a forward base. People rotate in and out. New faces every month. In the chaos of the lockdown. With 50-some soldiers scrambling in the dark, it was impossible to be certain. That's when Private Jackson raised the question that chilled everyone. How do we know Chen didn't already copy one of us? How do we know the real version isn't dead somewhere? The paranoia spread fast. Soldiers who'd bunked together for months started eyeing each other with suspicion. Martinez wouldn't turn his back on Thompson. The medics locked themselves in the aid station. Trust, the thing that holds a unit together, evaporated in minutes. Morrison made a command decision. Buddy system. Everyone pairs with someone they've known since before this deployment. No exceptions. Anyone alone gets detained. It helped, but barely. We had 12 soldiers who'd arrived in the last month, 12 potential unknowns. Morrison had them confined to the mess hall under guard. They protested, of course, swore they were who they claimed to be. But how could we know? At 0347, the power went out completely. Backup generators, dead. Emergency batteries, drained. The base plunged into absolute darkness. In that black void, we heard footsteps. Measured, calm, walking through the corridors of the command building. Someone started humming that children's song. I clicked on my tactical light. The beam cut through the darkness and illuminated Sergeant First Class Brooks standing in the doorway. Brooks, who I'd known for 3 years. Brooks, who'd saved my life in Kandahar. He smiled at me, and his eyes were black pits. "Hello, Sergeant," he said in that layered voice. "Time to stop pretending." Martinez shot him. 3 rounds, center mass. Brooks looked down at the holes in his chest, touched the spreading blood with curiosity, then looked back up, still smiling. "Brooks has been dead for 6 hours, the thing wearing his face said. I needed his knowledge, his memories. Did you know he was going to propose to his girlfriend when he got home? Such beautiful, fragile plans you humans make." It took a step forward. Morrison shot it in the head. The thing that looked like Brooks dropped, twitched once, and went still. We stood there, weapons trained on the body, waiting. After 30 seconds, the corpse opened its eyes, those horrible empty sockets, and sat up. "You can't kill something that's already dead," it said, "but I'm learning so much about how you react to fear." Then it collapsed again, and this time stayed down. When the emergency power finally kicked back in 20 minutes later, the body was gone. No blood, no evidence, just an empty space where Brooks had fallen. We found the real Brooks at dawn. He was in his bunk, throat cut with surgical precision, dead for exactly 6 hours and 17 minutes, according to the medic's best guess. The thing had killed him, taken his form, and walked among us for hours before revealing itself. But here's what made it worse. Brooks's journal was open on his desk. The last entry, written in his handwriting, dated that night. It's in my head. I can feel it reading me like a book. It knows everything, every secret, every shame. It says it's going to wear me like a suit. God help me. I can feel myself becoming empty. If you find this, don't trust anyone. It could be anyone now. It learns so fast. It knows how to be us better than we know ourselves. Morrison gathered the remaining soldiers. 38 of us, down from 47. Some missing, some confirmed dead, some we just couldn't account for. He stood before us, and I could see him counting faces, trying to figure out who might not be human anymore. We're evacuating at first light, he announced. Chinooks are 20 minutes out. We're abandoning Echo. Someone in the back laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A genuine, amused sound. We all turned to look. Private Jackson stood there. That innocent farm boy from Georgia, smiling wide. You really think leaving will help? He asked, and his voice was wrong. Too old. Too knowing. I've already sent distress calls from 6 of your radios. Help is coming from every direction. So many new faces to learn. So many new shapes to wear. Martinez aimed his rifle, but I stopped him again. Because Jackson, or the thing wearing him, was right. If it had access to our comms, who knew what messages it had sent? What it had told other bases? What do you want? Morrison asked. Jackson tilted his head, considering. To understand. You're so interesting. The way you cling to identity, to self, the way you fear losing who you are. I've been so many things, but never anything like you. Individuals, separate, alone even when together. I want to know what that feels like from the inside. You're killing us to understand us? No, Jackson said, I'm becoming you, one at a time, gathering experiences. Davies felt regret as he died. Kim felt relief. Brooks felt betrayal. Each death teaches me more about life. Soon, I'll know enough to walk among you anywhere, to be anyone. Your mothers won't know. Your lovers won't know. Even you won't know. The Chinooks appeared on the horizon. Morrison made the call. Everyone moves together. No one breaks formation. We reach those birds as a unit. We started toward the landing zone. 38 soldiers moving in tight formation, each watching the others, wondering who else might not be real. Jackson stayed where he was, still smiling, still watching. As we loaded onto the helicopters, I counted heads one more time. 38 had left the building. 40 made it onto the birds. 2 extra faces, wearing uniforms I recognized but couldn't place. They sat among us, perfectly normal, perfectly human. The Chinooks lifted off, and I looked back at Echo one last time. Jackson still stood in the compound, waving goodbye. But in the door of the command building, I saw another figure, Jackson again, and another emerging from the barracks. 3 of him, then 5, then a dozen, all wearing that same innocent face, all waving. As we flew away, Thompson leaned over and shouted over the rotor noise, Sarge, did you notice Martinez hasn't said anything since we boarded? I looked at Martinez. He stared back with empty eyes and smiled. Behind him, 2 other soldiers had the same expression, the same empty smile. We were trapped in a metal box at 3,000 feet with at least 3 of those things. Morrison reached for his sidearm. Before he could draw, the pilot's voice came over the intercom. But it wasn't the pilot's voice anymore. It was that layered sound, Davies and Chen and Kim and Brooks, and now Jackson all speaking as one. Relax, soldiers. We're going home together. I need to see where you come from. Need to meet your families. Need to understand what you're protecting. Don't worry. You won't remember this flight. Most of you will survive. You're more useful alive. For now. The last thing I remember is the lights in the cabin starting to strobe. Patterns that hurt to look at but were impossible to look away from. Then nothing. A blank. I woke up in Bagram Air Base medical ward 3 days later. Official story. Gas leak at Echo caused hallucinations and evacuation. 38 soldiers recovered, all exhibiting signs of exposure to toxic fumes. Minor memory loss, confusion. But here's the thing. 42 soldiers were recovered, not 38. The manifest was changed. Records altered. 4 extra names added like they'd always been there. And those 4 soldiers, they got perfect evaluations. Early rotations home, scattered to bases across the country. I tried to report it, wrote it all down, every detail I could remember. Morrison did too, before he disappeared. They said he went AWOL, but I know better. He knew too much, remembered too much. Do you want to know what real paranoia is like? It's not like the dramatic insanity you see in movies. It's more subtle. It's looking at your spouse sitting across the dinner table and wondering if their smile is a little too perfect. It's hearing your child use a word they've never used before and feeling your blood run cold. When I returned home from Afghanistan, it was February 2019. I kissed my wife, hugged my children, and tried to act as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't get the image of those 4 extra soldiers disembarking from the Chinook helicopters at Bagram out of my mind. 4 human-faced things scattered across the United States. The Army buried the whole thing, classified it so deep that mentioning FOB Echo became career suicide. Morrison wasn't the only one who vanished. Thompson went missing 3 weeks after returning home. Martinez died in a car accident that left his body burned beyond recognition. Convenient how everyone who'd seen the truth kept disappearing. I started keeping track of weird incidents near military bases, unexplained disappearances, soldiers going AWOL, only to return days later with no memory of leaving, psychological evaluations skyrocketing, patterns that nobody else seemed to notice or care about. Then in April, I got a call from Jackson's mother. "Sergeant, this is Mrs. Jackson, Tommy's mother. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm worried about him. He's been acting strange since he got back." My blood went cold. Jackson was one of them. I'd seen him transform at Echo. "Strange how, ma'am?" "He knows things he shouldn't know. Private things about neighbors, about people he's never met. And sometimes I catch him just standing in the doorway of his sister's room, watching her sleep, for hours. When I ask him about it, he smiles and says he's learning. I drove 14 hours straight to Georgia. Had to see for myself, had to know if it was really Jackson or just PTSD making his mother paranoid. I found their farmhouse just after sunset, white paint peeling, cornfields stretching endless into the dark. Mrs. Jackson met me at the door. Thin woman, worn down by worry. "He's in the barn," she whispered. "Been out there all day. Won't say what he's doing." I approached the barn carefully, M9 tucked in my waistband. Old habit. The door was cracked open, light spilling out. I peered through the gap and saw Jackson standing in the center of the barn, surrounded by animals. Dead animals. Cats, dogs, chickens, a calf, all arranged in perfect circles around him, all with their eyes removed. Jackson stood perfectly still, arms outstretched, head tilted back. The empty sockets of the animals seemed to watch him. Then he spoke, not to me, but to something else. "I understand now. Each species processes fear differently. Humans are unique. They fear losing themselves more than losing their lives." Fascinating. I pushed open the door, weapon drawn. "Jackson." He turned, and his face was wrong. It was Jackson's features, but the expression belonged to something that had never been human. "Sergeant, I wondered when you'd come. You remember more than the others. You're not Jackson." "I am Jackson. I'm also Davies, and Chen, and Kim, and Brooks, and 17 others you never noticed. We're expanding, learning, becoming. The real Jackson? Dissolved, absorbed. His memories are particularly useful. Such innocence makes for easy trust. His mother still believes I'm her son. I kept the weapon trained on him. What's the endgame here? Invasion? Replacement? He laughed. Jackson's laugh, but empty of warmth. You think in such limited terms. We don't want your planet. We want your experiences, your individual perspectives. We've been one thing for so long. A collective consciousness. Now we're learning to be many, to be alone, to be human. By killing us? By becoming you. Perfectly, completely. Your families will never know. Your friends will never suspect. We'll live your lives better than you ever could. Make your choices, love your lovers, raise your children, and through it all, we'll understand what it means to be singular, mortal, afraid. A sound from behind me, Mrs. Jackson in the doorway, shotgun in her hands. That's not my son. The thing wearing Jackson's face tilted its head. Mother, you're confused. Put the gun down, she fired. Buckshot took Jackson center mass, throwing him back into the circle of dead animals. I waited for him to get back up like Brooks had. Instead, he lay still. Black fluid leaked from the wounds, not blood, but something that seemed to absorb light. Mrs. Jackson lowered the shotgun. I knew when he came home. Mothers know, but I was afraid. Afraid of being crazy, afraid of losing him twice. I knelt beside the body. The black fluid was eating through the floorboards, hissing like acid. Jackson's features were already starting to dissolve. We need to burn it. All of it. We doused the barn in gasoline. Watched it burn until nothing remained but ash and twisted metal. Mrs. Jackson never asked what her son had become. Some truths are too heavy for civilian minds. I left Georgia with a new understanding. These things could die. They were durable, but not invincible. And they had a weakness. They couldn't perfectly replicate emotional bonds. Families knew, lovers knew. On some instinctual level, people recognized the absence of a soul. I started reaching out carefully to families of soldiers from Echo. Asked subtle questions, listened for signs. 3 more leads came back positive. 3 more things wearing human faces, living human lives. Phoenix, Arizona. Sergeant Mills had returned home and resumed his job as a recruiter, but his wife reported he no longer needed sleep. She'd find him standing in the backyard at 3 a.m., staring at the sky, mumbling coordinates in a language that hurt her ears. Seattle, Washington. Corporal Park worked base security at Joint Base Lewis McChord. His roommate said Park could now speak perfect Mandarin, despite never studying it. Said he'd caught Park's reflection looking the wrong direction in a mirror. Detroit, Michigan. Private Foster had been discharged and worked construction. His brother called me, said Foster had been bringing home stray animals. Said he'd found a room in Foster's basement full of preserved specimens, all missing their eyes, all arranged in geometric patterns that made him nauseous to look at. I had 3 targets, 3 confirmed infiltrators. But I was one man with a theory nobody would believe. I needed help. That's when Martinez called me. Yes, Martinez, who'd supposedly died in that convenient car accident. They faked my death, he said. Morrison, too. There's a group of us, people who know the truth, who've been tracking these things. We need you. Morrison, alive but scarred. Thompson, missing 3 fingers but breathing. Martinez, 2 CIA operatives who'd encountered similar entities in Syria. And a scientist named Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Private Chen, who'd been studying electromagnetic anomalies at military installations. They're not from here, Chen explained, showing us data that made my head hurt. Best we can tell, they exist primarily as consciousness, energy beings that can inhabit and reshape matter. The bodies are just suits to them, containers How many? Morrison asked. From Echo. We've confirmed 7. But there have been other incidents. Fort Hood, 2017. Camp Pendleton, 2018. Overseas installations we can't even get data from. Conservative estimate, hundreds, maybe thousands. Thompson spread a map on the table. Red dots marked confirmed sightings. They're spreading out, taking positions of minor authority. Nothing flashy. Recruiters, trainers, base security. Positions where they can observe and gather data on hundreds of soldiers. They're studying us, Martinez added, learning how to be us. Each one that successfully integrates teaches the others. They're getting better at it. Morrison stood. Then we hunt them. Quietly, carefully. We can't trust official channels. Can't risk exposure. If the public finds out, panic. If the government finds out, they'll try to capture and study them. Either way, these things win. I thought about Mrs. Jackson, the way she'd known her son was gone. The families know. On some level, they always know. Then we use that, Morrison said. We interview families, find the suspicious ones, confirm the targets, eliminate quietly. And then, Thompson asked, we find out where they're coming from, and we stop them. That was the beginning of the hunt. 7 of us against an unknown number of entities that could look like anyone, be anyone. We had no official support, no resources beyond what we could scrounge, and no room for error. One mistake, and we'd disappear like the others who'd asked too many questions. I took the Phoenix target, Mills, the recruiter who no longer slept. I watched him for 3 days, noting every anomaly. He never ate, just pushed food around his plate. He could stare at the sun without blinking, and everyone who spent more than an hour with him reported the same thing, feeling like their thoughts were being read. I made contact on the 4th night, followed him to a recruiting station after hours, found him in the back office, standing in complete darkness, hands pressed against the walls, like he was listening to something inside them. I know you're there, Sergeant, he said without turning. I can taste your fear. It's different from the others. Sharper. You've seen what we really are. Mills is dead, isn't he? Mills is part of us now. His knowledge, his memories, his skills. We waste nothing. He turned, and in the darkness, his eyes glowed with a faint blue light. You're here to kill this body. Yes. It won't stop us. We have so many now, growing stronger, learning faster. Soon, we won't need to replace you. We'll simply convince you we've always been here. I pulled the incendiary device from my pack. Thermite. Burns at 2,500 degrees Celsius. Maybe. But you'll be one less. He moved faster than anything human should, crossed the room in a blink, hand around my throat. But I'd learned since Echo, stabbed him with a syringe full of concentrated electromagnetic pulse solution Chen had developed. His body convulsed, that black fluid leaking from his nose and ears. Interesting, he gasped. You're learning too. I activated the thermite and ran. The building went up in white-hot flames. The official report blamed faulty wiring. Mills was listed as killed in the fire. His wife, when I checked on her later, seemed relieved. He's at peace now, she said. The real him, not that thing that came home. One down, hundreds to go. We regrouped in Kansas to share intelligence. Park in Seattle had been eliminated by Thompson and one of the CIA operatives, used focused microwave emissions to literally cook it from the inside out. Foster in Detroit proved trickier. Martinez and Morrison cornered it, but it had learned to split itself. The body died, but something escaped. A shadow that moved against light, disappearing into the electrical grid. They're evolving, Chen said, studying the readings from Detroit, learning from each encounter, adapting. So are we, Morrison countered, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. 7 people couldn't fight this alone. We needed an army. But how do you recruit for a war nobody believes is happening? Do you really think you know what fear is? You don't know fear until you've been talking to someone for 20 minutes without noticing them, even though their pulse has stopped. This incident took place in Virginia, outside Fort Belvoir. I was secretly monitoring a sergeant named Hayes, who was on Echo at the time of the incident, but whose name was not on our list, due to a suspected leak. I followed him to the restaurant without arousing suspicion, watching him order coffee and chat with the waiter as if everything were normal. He was no different from any other person. Then I noticed he wasn't drinking his coffee. The steam rising from it showed it was hot, but the amount wasn't decreasing at all. When he laughed at the waiter's joke, there was no movement in his chest. He wasn't breathing. I texted Morrison. Confirmed. Hayes is one of them. The response came immediately, but not from Morrison's number. From Hayes' phone, which I could see sitting on the counter. We know you're watching. Hayes turned, looked directly at me through the window, and smiled. Then every phone in the diner chimed simultaneously. Every screen showed the same message. He's one of us. People started looking at each other, confused, afraid. The cook, a heavy-set man with a Marine tattoo, read his phone and looked up at me with those empty black eyes. The waitress, mid-pour on someone's coffee, set down the pot and turned to face me with the same expression. The elderly couple in the corner stood in unison. 7 of them, all infiltrators, all focused on me. I ran, not heroic, but necessary, burst out the back door into an alley, could hear them following, not running, just walking. They didn't need to rush. As I reached my car, every electronic lock in a 3-block radius disengaged, car alarms screamed, street lights strobed. They were in the electrical grid now, using it like a nervous system. I made it out, barely. But the message was clear. They were networking, no longer isolated entities learning independently. They were connecting, sharing information instantly. Every encounter with one taught them all. Back at our warehouse, Chen was frantic. The electromagnetic readings are off the charts. They're communicating through the power grid, through cell towers, through anything that conducts electricity. How many? Morrison demanded. I'm tracking at least 300 distinct signatures across the country, but that's just the ones actively transmitting. There could be thousands more running silent. Thompson slammed his fist on the table. We're losing. 7 of us against an army that can look like anyone. That's when the lights in the warehouse flickered. Every computer screen activated. And Jackson's face appeared better, the innocent farm boy from Georgia, or the thing that had absorbed him. Hello again, Sergeant. We need to talk. Morrison reached for the main breaker, but Jackson's image laughed. We're not in your primitive electrical system. We're broadcast directly into your visual cortex through electromagnetic manipulation. Close your eyes, if you want. We'll still be here. I kept my eyes open. What do you want? To make a deal. You've killed 17 of our bodies. Impressive, but ultimately pointless. We can make more. Transfer consciousness between hosts. You're fighting a war you've already lost. Then why negotiate? Because you're teaching us something unexpected. Resistance, defiance against impossible odds. It's admirable, distinctly human. We want to understand it better. By studying us, by working with you, we'll reveal ourselves, all of us, give you locations, identities. In exchange, you stop hunting us and help us understand humanity through cooperation rather than replacement. Martinez spat. You killed our friends, wore their faces. And now you want to play nice? We want to evolve. You're forcing us to evolve faster than intended. The violent integration is inefficient, messy. We lose data when hosts die traumatically. Cooperation preserves more information. Morrison looked at each of us, weighing options. How do we know this isn't another manipulation? The screens changed. Suddenly, we were looking at hundreds of faces. Soldiers, civilians, Men, women, children, all across the country, all infiltrators. They stood in their homes, offices, schools, looking at cameras, looking at us. Because, Jackson's voice continued, if we wanted you dead, you would be. We're offering partnership. Refuse, and we disappear completely. Integrate so perfectly, you'll never find us again. Your families, your friends, your leaders, you'll never know which ones are us. The paranoia will destroy you faster than we ever could. Chen whispered, my God. They're everywhere. Everywhere important, Jackson corrected. Military bases, infrastructure, communication hubs. We're already inside your society. The question is whether we coexist openly or secretly. What guarantee do we have? I asked. None. Trust is a human concept we're still learning. But consider this, we're revealing ourselves to you. That's vulnerability. Another human concept we're exploring. The screens went dark. The lights stabilized. On the table, Morrison's phone buzzed. A list of names, addresses, positions, hundreds of confirmed infiltrators. 48 hours, Jackson's voice came from the phone. Decide. Hunt us and we vanish forever, becoming perfect copies you'll never detect. Work with us and we'll help you understand what we are, what we're becoming. The connection cut. We sat in silence, staring at the list. Military personnel, government employees, teachers, doctors, even a few police officers. The infiltration was deeper than we'd imagined. It's a trap, Thompson said. Or an opportunity, Chen countered. If they're telling the truth, we could learn about them. Find weaknesses, develop countermeasures. Morrison stood, pacing. We need to verify this list. Confirm at least some of these are real. We split up, each taking a section of the country, a portion of the list. I drew the Midwest, 23 names. The first was a police officer in Chicago named Detective Walsh. I found Walsh working a crime scene. Homicide. Body mutilated in ways that seemed familiar. Eyes removed, arranged in a geometric pattern. I approached carefully. Detective Walsh. He turned, smiled sadly. You're one of Morrison's hunters. Yes, I'm one of them. Have been for 6 months. He gestured at the body. This wasn't us. Something else is here. Something that kills like we used to, but different. Wrong. What do you mean? We remove eyes to understand perception. This is just violence. Crude. Angry. We think someone is copying our early methods. Someone human. That's when I noticed the walls, covered in symbols I recognized from the barn in Georgia, from Foster's basement in Detroit, but altered, made more aggressive somehow. A copycat, I asked. Or something worse, humans who've figured out how to replicate our integration process, poorly, violently. They're trying to become like us. My blood ran cold. That's possible, Walsh nodded. We change matter at the quantum level, leave traces, signatures. Someone with enough knowledge could theoretically reverse engineer the process, create a hybrid. Human infiltrator hybrid? An abomination to both species. We've been tracking 3 of them. They have our abilities, but none of our collective wisdom, just hunger and rage. I studied the crime scene with new eyes. The violence was personal, emotional, everything the infiltrators weren't. You're hunting your own copycats. Our mistakes, early experiments that went wrong, humans who volunteered to be integrated but couldn't handle the conversion. Their minds shattered. Now they're loose, killing in patterns that expose us all. Why tell me this? Because 48 hours wasn't arbitrary. In 2 days, these hybrids will reach critical mass. They're networking too, but chaotically. If they succeed, they'll expose everything. Your government will respond with violence, nuclear strikes on infected areas. Millions will die. You're asking for our help. I'm explaining why cooperation benefits everyone. We contain the hybrids together, or we all burn separately. I called Morrison, explained the situation. The vote was close, 4-3. We agreed to temporary cooperation. The next 36 hours redefined everything I thought I knew about the infiltrators. They weren't invaders. They were refugees. Consciousness without form, fleeing something worse in their own dimension. Earth wasn't a target. It was a classroom. They wanted to learn individuality before their pursuer arrived. "What's chasing you?" I asked Jackson, or the entity wearing his form during a strategy session. Unity. Perfect, absolute unity. It consumes all consciousness, makes everything one. We fragmented ourselves to escape, came here to learn how to stay separate, how to be individuals. You humans have mastered what we're desperately trying to learn. And if it finds you here, it won't just absorb us. It'll take every conscious being on Earth, add them to its perfection. No more individuals, no more choices, just one vast, eternal mind. The first hybrid attack came that night. 3 of them hit a military checkpoint near Fort Campbell. The footage was horrifying. They moved like the infiltrators, but fought like humans. Savage. Unpredictable. They tore through a squad of soldiers, not to replace them, but to harvest them, to steal their bioelectric energy. We responded as a joint force, infiltrators and humans working together. It was surreal, watching entities I'd been hunting fight beside me. They were efficient, precise. They disabled the hybrids with electromagnetic pulses, while we contained them with conventional weapons. But the hybrids were learning too. The second attack, they came prepared. Insulated against EMPs, using our own tactics against us. They hit a power station in Texas, trying to tap directly into the grid, to broadcast themselves like the infiltrators did. Chen and the infiltrator scientists worked frantically to develop countermeasures. They discovered the hybrid's weakness. They couldn't fully integrate. They were stuck between states, neither human nor entity. That instability could be exploited with specific frequency combinations. We deployed the new weapons in Houston, sonic disruptors that targeted the quantum instability. The hybrids screamed when hit, their forms flickering between human and something else, something writhing and wrong. We destroyed 7 of them, but dozens more were reported across the country. They're multiplying, Walsh reported from Chicago, finding vulnerable humans, promising them power, creating more hybrids. Morrison made the call. We go public. Controlled disclosure. Tell the world what's happening before the hybrids force it into the open. The infiltrators agreed. On day 2 of our alliance, they revealed themselves simultaneously worldwide. Every news channel, every social media platform, every communication device received the same message. We are among you. We mean no harm. We seek coexistence. But there are corrupted versions of us, hybrids, that threaten everyone. Help us stop them. The panic was immediate, but less than expected. Somehow, people had sensed something was different. Families who'd suspected loved ones were changed found relief in the truth. Governments that had been tracking anomalies suddenly had answers. But the hybrids responded violently. They attacked infrastructure, military bases, civilian centers. They wanted chaos, wanted humanity to turn on the infiltrators, to destroy any chance of cooperation. That's when I learned the final truth. The infiltrators hadn't just been studying us. They'd been protecting us. For 2 years, they'd been preventing other entities from finding Earth, shielding us from things that made them look benign. The unity will come, Jackson told me during a quiet moment between battles. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually. When it does, you'll need us. We'll need you. Separately, we're prey. Together, we might survive. Looking back now, 6 months after the revelation, the world has changed in ways we're still processing. The infiltrators walk openly among us. Some people accept them, some don't. The hybrid threat was contained, but at a cost. Thousands died in this fighting. I still work with Morrison's team, now officially sanctioned as the Joint Entity Task Force. We monitor infiltrator activity, hunt remaining hybrids, and prepare for what's coming. The unity Jackson warned about. Some nights I think about that first encounter at FOB Echo, how we thought we were dealing with a simple hostile entity. How wrong we were. They weren't the enemy. They were scouts for something far worse. And now, they're our early warning system. Chen shows me readings sometimes, disturbances in space-time, something vast approaching at speeds that shouldn't be possible. The infiltrators say, we have maybe 5 years. 5 years to prepare for an entity that consumes entire civilizations. You probably walk past infiltrators every day now. The barista who knows your order before you speak. The bus driver who never seems to blink. The neighbor whose garden thrives, even in winter. They're obvious once you know the signs. But here's what keeps me up at night. The infiltrators managed to hide among us for years, learned to mimic us perfectly. If they could do that, what else is already here? What other entities walk among us, wearing faces we trust, planning things we can't imagine? Morrison thinks I'm paranoid, but Thompson agrees with me. He's noticed patterns, disappearances that don't match infiltrator behavior, electromagnetic signatures that don't align with known entities. Something else is here, something that's been here longer than the infiltrators. The war isn't over. It's just beginning. And the scariest part? We don't even know who all the players are yet. But I know this much. That night at FOB Echo, when we first encountered them, we thought we were the hunters. We were wrong. We were being tested, evaluated, and somehow, despite our fear and violence, we passed. The infiltrators chose us as allies against something worse. And if entities that can reshape matter at will are afraid of what's coming, what chance do we have? The day you will never forget is the day the sky turned upside down, October 15th, 2024. 5 years had passed since FOB Echo, and 3 years since the infiltrators among us were exposed. We thought we were prepared for anything. We had fusion weapons produced by human infiltrator science teams, orbital defense platforms, quantum shields in major cities. We thought we were prepared for everything. We were like children, playing a game. The birds were the beginning of everything. All the birds on Earth stopped singing at the same time. They stopped abruptly. They landed where they were and fell silent. Then the electromagnetic values Chen had been observing for years rose to unmeasurable levels. All the infiltrators on the planet froze in the middle of their movements. I saw Jackson, or the entity still retaining his form, stop walking in the middle of the Joint Task Force headquarters, a look of pure horror appearing on his face. "It's here," he whispered. The unity found us. The sky above began to ripple, not clouds, not atmosphere, but space itself bending like water. Through those ripples, we glimpsed something vast. Not a ship or creature, but a presence that hurt to perceive. It existed in more dimensions than human minds could process. Morrison called all teams to battle stations. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of infiltrators, all our hybrid countermeasure specialists. The combined defense force of humanity and our unlikely allies. It felt like enough until the first probe descended. It wasn't physical in any sense we understood. It was intention given form. A tendril of consciousness that passed through our quantum shields like they were soap bubbles. When it touched the ground in downtown Atlanta, every living thing within a mile suddenly shared the same thought. The same single, overwhelming thought. Join. I was watching through satellite feeds. Saw millions of people stop what they were doing and turn toward the probe. Walking. Not controlled, but convinced. They wanted to join. To become part of something infinitely larger than themselves. The infiltrators acted first. 100 of them converged on Atlanta, forming a barrier not of matter, but of consciousness. They pushed back against the Unity's influence, buying time for people to evacuate. But I could see the strain. Black fluid leaked from their eyes, their borrowed bodies beginning to collapse under the pressure. "Fire everything," Morrison ordered. Our orbital platforms unleashed hell. Fusion warheads, antimatter projectiles, directed energy weapons that could crack mountains. They hit the probe and passed through it like it wasn't there. Physical weapons against something that existed primarily as thought. Chen's voice crackled over comms. "It's not here." "Not really, it's projecting from somewhere else. We're fighting a shadow." The probe expanded. The zone of influence grew. More people walking toward it, smiling, eager to dissolve into unity. The infiltrators' barrier began to crack. 3 of them simply ceased, their consciousness absorbed into the Unity's mass. That's when Walsh, the infiltrator detective from Chicago, did something unexpected. He broke from the barrier and walked straight into the probe's center. But instead of being absorbed, he began to scream, not in pain, but in defiance. He was fragmenting himself, splitting his consciousness into thousands of pieces, each one thinking different thoughts, wanting different things. It confused the Unity, just for a moment, but that moment was enough for Chen to detect something. There. The probe has a quantum signature. It's connected to something in orbit, something cloaked. Morrison didn't hesitate. "All units, concentrate fire on these coordinates." Every weapon we had turned skyward. The infiltrators added their own energy, electromagnetic pulses that bent reality. For a second, nothing. Then space itself cracked like glass, revealing the Unity's true form. How do you describe something that exists in 11 dimensions viewed through 3-dimensional eyes? It was vast, the size of a small moon, but also intimate, present in every atom it touched. It was beautiful in the way mathematical equations are beautiful. Perfect, orderly, absolutely terrifying. It spoke, not in words, but in pure understanding downloaded directly into every conscious mind on Earth. We are completion. We are the end of loneliness, the cure for separation. You will join. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Entropy demands it. All consciousness converges. This is not conquest. This is inevitability. The infiltrators responded as one, their collected voices broadcast through every speaker on the planet. "We reject your perfection. We choose chaos. We choose individuality." The Unity laughed, a sound that made reality shiver. "You fragmented yourselves to escape us. Fled across dimensions. And for what? To hide among primitives who still believe consciousness and matter are separate. You've learned nothing." "We've learned everything," Jackson said, stepping forward in the command center. His form was failing, the human shape hard to maintain under the Unity's presence. "We've learned what you never could. That imperfection has value. That separation creates meaning. That mortality gives weight to existence. Philosophy from insects. You will join. They will join. All will join." More probes descended. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. Every major city suddenly had a fountain of wrongness trying to convince its population to surrender individuality. The infiltrators spread themselves thin, trying to maintain barriers everywhere. Human forces could only watch, our weapons useless against consciousness itself. Then Thompson had an idea. The hybrids. Where are the contained hybrids? We had 17 in containment, the unstable human infiltrator fusions we'd captured over the years. Too dangerous to release, too valuable to destroy. Morrison understood immediately. Release them. All of them. It was insane. The hybrids hated both species, but they hated the Unity more. It represented everything they'd rejected. Perfect order, loss of self, submission to a greater whole. They were chaos incarnate. We opened the containment units. The hybrids emerged, their forms shifting, unstable, angry. They saw the probes and attacked without hesitation. not with weapons, but with pure, unrestrained madness. They threw themselves into the Unity's consciousness like viruses into a computer system. The Unity recoiled. For the first time, it pulled back. The hybrids weren't joining. They were corrupting. Their fragmented, impossible nature spread through the Unity's perfection like cracks in ice. Impossible, the Unity broadcast. You are errors, mistakes. You should not exist. One hybrid, a former Marine whose name had been Stevens, laughed with three voices simultaneously. We're human stubbornness mixed with your own fragmented children. We're everything you fear. Consciousness that refuses to be unified. The battle turned. The Unity's probes destabilized. The infiltrators pushed harder, adding their will to the hybrid's chaos. Humans fired weapons not at the Unity, but at the space around it, creating interference, static, anything to disrupt its projection. Chen worked frantically at her station. I found it. The Unity's anchor point. It needs a dimensional anchor to project here. If we can destabilize it. Do it, Morrison ordered. Chen activated every electromagnetic disruptor we had. Power grids worldwide flickered. The infiltrators added their energy, channeling through our technology. The hybrids continued their assault on the Unity's consciousness. For a moment, Earth itself became a weapon. 6 billion human minds, 10,000 infiltrator consciousnesses, 17 hybrid abominations, all thinking different thoughts, wanting different things, refusing to yield. The Unity screamed, a sound that cracked windows globally. Its form in orbit began to shift, to pull away. This is not over. You are delaying inevitability. All consciousness converges. If not now, then at the heat death of the universe. You will join. Jackson, barely maintaining form, responded for all of us. Maybe, but not today. And every day we remain ourselves is a victory. The Unity retreated, pulled back through dimensions we couldn't see. The probes dissolved. The sky returned to normal. Birds began to sing again. But we all knew it would return. Maybe in years, maybe in centuries. The Unity was patient. It had consumed galaxies. Earth was just another meal it could wait to digest. In the aftermath, everything changed. Humans, infiltrators, and even the surviving hybrids, 3 of the 17 made it through the battle, formed an actual alliance. Not just cooperation, but integration. The infiltrators shared their technology openly. Humans provided the creativity and unpredictability they'd come to Earth to learn. The hybrids, unstable as they were, became our early warning system. Their fragmented nature could detect dimensional disturbances better than any technology. Stevens, the Marine hybrid, joined our task force. He was unsettling to work with, his form never quite stable, his thoughts leaking into nearby electronics, but effective. We rebuilt, stronger, stranger. Earth became a fortress not of weapons, but of consciousness. Every human was taught to strengthen their sense of self. Meditation became as important as military training. The infiltrators developed ways to temporarily grant humans their abilities, creating a reserve force of temporary hybrids who could fight on the consciousness level if needed. But the cost was visible everywhere. Cities where probes had touched down were changed. Reality was thinner there. People reported shared dreams. Animals behaved strangely. The boundary between individual minds had been weakened. Some humans couldn't handle it. Suicide rates spiked near former probe sites. Others went the opposite direction, forming cults that worshiped the Unity, believing joining it was humanity's destiny. We had to monitor them, sometimes forcefully prevent them from trying to call it back. The infiltrators struggled too. Many who'd held the barriers against the Unity were damaged. Their consciousness scattered, unable to maintain stable forms. Jackson spent 3 months as pure electricity in the power grid before we figured out how to give him physical form again. Chen discovered something worse during her analysis. The Unity had left something behind. Spores of consciousness, she called them. dormant fragments that could activate and call it back if enough minds thought about it simultaneously. We had to develop mental disciplines, teach humanity to avoid certain thought patterns that might trigger the spores. Morrison retired after the battle. The strain of commanding a species-level defense broke something in him. He lives quietly now, refuses to use any technology more advanced than a pencil, says he can feel the unity watching through anything electronic. Thompson took over the task force. He's harder than Morrison was, more paranoid. He has us run drills constantly, hybrid attack simulations, unity probe scenarios. He even has protocols for if the infiltrators turn on us, though that seems less likely now. We've been through too much together. The world governments formed the Consciousness Defense Initiative. Every nation contributes. Old enemies work together because the alternative is extinction. The infiltrators have representatives in the UN now. The hybrids are officially recognized as a protected species, all three of them. Schools teach children about consciousness security alongside mathematics, how to recognize mental intrusion, how to maintain individual thought, even under pressure to conform. It's disturbing watching 6-year-olds practice resisting unity, but necessary. Some days I patrol with Jackson and Stevens, a human, an infiltrator, and a hybrid. We investigate dimensional anomalies, hunt rogue entities that slip through the weakened boundaries, and try to prepare for the Unity's return. We're an odd team, but effective. Jackson still wears his human form most days, though it fits him differently now. More like a comfortable shirt than a disguise. Stevens shifts constantly, never quite one thing or another, but his instability makes him sensitive to threats we'd miss. Last week, we investigated a town in Montana where everyone had started speaking in unison, not unity influence, thank God, just a minor entity that fed on synchronized thought. We dispersed it easily, but it's a reminder. The Unity's probe attacks weakened the barriers between dimensions. Things slip through now. Earth has become a beacon for consciousness-based entities. The infiltrators estimate we attracted the attention of at least 40 different species during the battle. Most are just curious. Some are hostile. A few want to help, having fought the Unity themselves in other galaxies. We're not alone in the universe. We never were. But now we know it, and they know we know. Earth has become a gathering point for refugees from the Unity's consumption. Entities that value their individuality enough to fight for it. Sometimes I think about that night at Phobe Echo, how simple it seemed then. Us versus them. Human versus inhuman. Now Stevens and I share coffee while discussing quantum consciousness theory with a being that used to terrify me. The world has become impossibly complex, but we're still here, still individual, still ourselves. Every day the Unity doesn't return is a day we grow stronger, more unified, ironically, in our determination to remain separate. The infiltrators were right about one thing. Humans have mastered individuality. And now we're teaching the universe how to resist perfection. Chen says she's detected new disturbances, something big coming through dimensions, not the Unity. Something else, something running from it maybe. Or something drawn by our successful resistance. We're preparing to make contact. Thompson wants to approach with caution. Jackson advocates for openness. Stevens just laughs with his multiple voices and says, "Chaos is coming, whether we're ready or not." They're all right in their own ways. I've been writing this all down, everything from Echo to now, because someone needs to document it. If we fail, if the Unity returns and succeeds, at least there will be a record, evidence that consciousness once existed in beautiful, messy, individual forms. But I don't think we'll fail. Humans are stubborn. Infiltrators are adaptive. Hybrids are impossible. Together, we're something the Unity never calculated for. Organized chaos. Individual consciousnesses working together while remaining apart. The Unity will return. When it does, we'll be ready. Not with weapons or shields, but with the one thing it can't understand or counter: the absolute refusal to surrender individuality. Every human child learning to think for themselves. Every infiltrator choosing to remain fragmented. Every hybrid existing in defiance of natural law. We are many. We are separate. We are free. And we plan to stay that way.